Our last session for today is session A4, which is all about AB 540 and the California DREAM Act application. So let's take a look at the topics we'll be discussing in this particular session. First, we'll look at AB 540 requirements. We'll look at financial aid for CADAA applicants. We'll take a look at the 25-26 CADAA application, CalICERs and other reports, and then we'll wrap things up with resources. So first, we'll cover AB 540 requirements. AB 540 stands for Assembly Bill 540, which essentially encompasses all of AB 540 and its expansions. And so what this allows is for students who are not considered California residents due to not being a citizen or an eligible non-citizen, it allows them to not only pay in-state tuition at a California college or university, but it also allows them to receive state and institutional aid by filing the CADAA. And so in order to meet AB 540 eligibility, students must meet certain requirements that are split up into two parts. Part one is length of time and coursework completed per school. What the student needs is the 3-year full-time equivalent of attendance at a California high school, adult school, or community college. The years can be non-consecutive, and it can also incorporate a mix of different types of units and credits. Now, if the student completed 3 years of high school coursework in less than 3 years of attendance, they can also include 3 years total attendance by incorporating their time at an elementary school, middle school, or their high school. And that allows students who perhaps graduated early to meet the attendance requirement by including their elementary or middle school years as well. Now, part two is degree completion or the completion of a GED, units, etc. And so to meet part two, the student must have graduated from a California high school or obtained an equivalent like a GED or the high set. Another option is to have attained an associate's degree from a California community college or fulfill minimum transfer requirements at a community college in order to transfer to a UC or a CSU. There are a lot of different scenarios that students could reach AB 540 eligibility, and so we recommend that students utilize the website that's listed at the bottom of the slide. Immigrantsrising.org is a fantastic organization that provides many different services for undocumented students, specifically in California and those pursuing higher education. On immigrantsrising.org, they actually have an AB 540 worksheet where a student can actually fill it out to determine if they meet the eligibility requirement, or it'll help them determine how many more units or years are needed to achieve that. So again, immigrantsrising.org is a great resource for students, especially if they are not sure whether or not they meet AB 540. Now, in order to receive in-state tuition and to be eligible for state and campus aid through the CADAA, the student must also sign an AB 540 affidavit. Prior to 24-25, this was a form that was distributed by the colleges and universities. So a student would go to their campus's admissions office to fill out this affidavit to show that they met AB 540 requirements and that they were going to pursue citizenship in the state of California as soon as they possibly could. Now, Starting in 24-25, the affidavit has now been embedded within the CADAA application. And so most California colleges and universities are now accepting that CADAA version of the affidavit, which allows students to skip that additional paperwork once they get to their school of their choice. We'll talk more about this embedded AB 540 affidavit on the next slide. So here is a screenshot of the embedded affidavit. As I said, this was brand new as of 24-25, and it will continue into the 25-26 CADAA application. And so here students will answer a series of questions to determine if they meet that AB 540 status. It'll ask questions such as, did they attend a California high school for 3 or more years? Did they earn a high school diploma or equivalent in California? And then, of course, if not, did they attain credits from a California adult school or a community college equivalent to 3 years or more? We'll take a look on the next slide to see where they actually list those schools, but this is how they started. Now, CSAC does not determine AB 540 eligibility. That piece is done at the college or university. What we do is we collect the answers from students as they self-reported them on the CADAA, and we send that data to any college or university that the student listed on their application. Then it is up to the college or university to see if the student meets AB 540 eligibility and if additional steps are needed. So at any point, if the student is wondering if they meet that criteria or not, they should really talk to their college or university. Now, for more information about what we call the California non-resident tuition exemption, which is what started AB 540, there's a link down there at the bottom of the slide. So within the affidavit on the CADAA application, the students can list their school of attendance and essentially add every school that meets that 3-year requirement. So students here can add the official name of their high school or their adult school or community college, anything that's going to add up to those 3 years. They will also need to enter the city and state where the school is located and the start and end date. So if a student had attended a California high school from freshman through senior year, the student here would indicate that they started, for example, in August of 2020 and ended in June of 2024, for example. They will also need to enter the number of credits or hours. This is just for reference here. This purple box will tell in some cases what the equivalent number of credits are if a student does 1 year of high school or 1 year of adult school, but this doesn't apply to all schools. Many high schools throughout California use their own system where instead of 3 or 4 unit classes, they may have 1 credit classes. So again, this is just more as an example, whereas the student should really refer to their transcript for the exact number of units, credits, or hours that were completed at that particular school. And here are just some best practices when serving CADAA filers and students that are looking to complete this application and receive financial aid through the CADAA. And so, again, we are gathering data from that AB 540 affidavit, and we are sending that to the schools that are listed on the student's application. One best practice is to ensure that the AB 540 affidavit data has been collected and reviewed by the Admissions and Records Office, and that the Financial Aid Office has shared that information in whatever way they deem is best, whether that be through reports or granting web grants access. It's really up to the individual school on how they want to get that information to the Admissions and Records Office. You should also train your staff on AB 540 eligibility, including the proper state residency determination. So, again, using resources like Immigrants Rising is particularly helpful. And then also ensure that your financial aid management system codes AB 540 students appropriately. So whether you're working in Banner or PeopleSoft or some other equivalent, it would be most beneficial to identify your AB 540 students specifically so that you are able to not only offer them the in-state tuition, but also offer them financial aid through the CADAA. Make sure you're updating your policies and procedures as AB 540 policies change, regulations change. As that information comes through, make sure you're updating your own policies at the campus level. And then also, many CADAA filers may not realize that there could be additional documentation required for that AB 540 affidavit. Some colleges and universities do require that students submit transcripts and copies of their high school diploma or equivalent in order to determine that they do meet AB 540 criteria. And so it's important that you're communicating with your CADAA filers that if documentation is needed, it should specify what exactly they need to bring in and where they should submit it. Next, let's take a look at financial aid that is available for students that file the CADAA. So as we mentioned before, students filing the CADAA can qualify for state financial aid. They can also qualify for campus aid. So first, on the left-hand side, we'll look at state aid through CSAC specifically. So CADAA filers can be eligible for Cal Grants A, B, and C, including the Students with Dependents Award and the Foster Youth Access Award. CADAA filers can also receive middle class scholarship if they are attending a CSU, a UC, or a community college as long as they are enrolled in a bachelor's program at the community college level. So that's when they would be taking those upper division units. CADAA filers can also qualify for Chafee Grant, DSIG, and College Corps, which we'll talk about more in a moment. On the right-hand side, at the campus level, community colleges offer programs like the California College Promise Grant and the Student Success Completion Grant, both of which are available to CADAA filers. Other specific campus aid includes the State University Grant at the CSU level, the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan, which is available at the UC, and then also the Dream Loan Program. Private colleges also offer their own aid. It can vary by campus, but some CADAA filers can take advantage of those programs as well. It just depends on the specific campus. Now, the California DREAM Act Service Incentive Grant, we call this DSIG for short, and this is a program specifically for CADAA filers or dreamers. And this allows CADAA filers to earn money for performing volunteer service within their communities. Students can actually earn up to $4,500 per year in this grant money by performing 300 hours of community or volunteer service, as long as they are attending a California public college or a private nonprofit institution within California. The student must have been either a Cal Grant B recipient or receiving the Cal Grant A award, but also met the initial criteria for Cal Grant B. The student must also be enrolled at least half-time, and now there is no longer a proration of awards, which means the student can be either part-time or full-time to receive the full $4,500 stipend. So for more information, I recommend clicking the link at the bottom of this slide, which takes you to our DSIG page. So let's take a look at where students can volunteer. So we have what's called DSIG qualifying organizations. And these qualifying organizations are places where the student can perform volunteer service in order to earn $4,500 of DSIG funds. It could be any business on the list of service organizations, which is currently available on our website. They can also volunteer with any school that is listed on the Cal Grant eligible schools list. So that's another great place for students to volunteer, is right within their own college or university. There are other nonprofits that are designated as a qualifying organization. And as an example, we've had students volunteering with the Boys and Girls Club, Habitat for Humanity. Uh, a lot of students tutor, or they do other uh, service. They work with students or other children, especially if they are going into like an education field. So there's lots of different opportunities. The list also includes any federal, state, or local government entity. Now, if an organization is interested in becoming a qualifying organization, all they have to do is reach out to the commission and we can see if they meet that criteria. One of the requirements is that the organization must have been established for at least 2 years before the student begins volunteering. It cannot be related to a political, social, or religious nature, and the volunteer service has to be related to the student's particular field of study or is for the greater good of the community and addresses a certain community need. So for more information, check out the website. The link is down there at the bottom, and organizations can submit the service organization registration form if they are interested in being added to the list. Now, if you'd like to see the current list of approved organizations, you can click at the where it says here at the bottom of the slide, and you can go through to see all of the different organizations, especially those in your area, so you can recommend them to your students. One thing I want to say about DSIG is we offer up to 1,667 positions every year. There are that many spots in order for students to get up to $4,500. But we haven't yet fully utilized the program for any year that it's been available. I believe currently we have a little over 800 students signed up and participating in this program this year, so there are still spots left. So we are trying to get the word out about DSIG and encourage students to take advantage of this program. In fact, there is another opportunity for them to earn even more money through volunteer service. Californians for All College Corps is a program that's very similar to DSIG, where students are performing volunteer work or community service. And these students who are enrolled in College Corps can actually earn up to $10,000 a year plus potential academic credit. And this is for students who complete up to 450 hours of community service. So it is possible for students who file the CADAA to participate in College Corps. What will happen is they will complete the 450 hours total of service, and their total $10,000 award will come from two sources. $4,500 of that will come from DSIG, and the other $5,500 will come from College Corps. If you visit the californiavolunteers.ca.gov website, you can see a list of all of the current partner campuses. And so if you're working with a particular student who's looking to do volunteer hours for these types of funds, you can recommend College Corps in addition to DSIG, where they can get $10,000 for the year. Another opportunity for students to receive funds for their higher education is through scholarships. Now, many of you may know that some scholarship organizations or donors require that the student show proof of citizenship, whether they are a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident. However, these organizations in particular have scholarships for undocumented students. Places like scholarships.com, Advisors, Immigrants Rising, Get Schooled, MALDEF, and 10,000 Degrees. These scholarships do not require citizenship status, and many of them are available to students who are attending college here in California and are CADAA filers. So please take a screenshot or save this list and let your Dreamer students know that there are other opportunities for money through scholarships. Now, the California Dream Loan Program is a fairly new program, and it works kind of like the federal direct loan program, except the source is different and the process in order to receive a dream loan is different. In order to borrow a dream loan, the student must be AB 540 eligible. They must be attending a CSU or a UC. They must have completed the CADAA. They must demonstrate sufficient financial need and have a course of study that is considered eligible under Cal Grant guidelines. So essentially, they must be enrolled in a program that either leads to a bachelor's, a professional, or a graduate degree. Now, these students, when they go to apply for the Dream Loan, they can actually receive an annual loan amount of up to $4,000. The lifetime aggregate maximum is $20,000 at any one institution. Much like the direct loan program through federal aid, this Dream Loan program has an annual promissory note, but not through the federal government. It's a promissory note that they sign that's similar to the direct loan MPN, but it's its own separate form. The interest rate on these loans will match whatever interest rate the direct loan subsidized rate is for that same year. So that would be easy to advise your students is the interest rate for the Dream Loan that year is exactly what the subsidized loan rate will be for that same year. Next, let's take a look at the 25-26 CADAA. So who can apply for the CADAA? This application is, again, for students who are looking to receive California state and campus aid. This is for students who may be undocumented, whether or not they have DACA, which is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It's not required, but it is available for students who have DACA status. They can have Temporary Protected Status, or TPS, or hold a U visa. For a list of countries that are under temporary protected status, I recommend looking at the USCIS website. Some examples of countries that are under TPS status include Ukraine and Haiti. So if we have students entering from those countries, they may be under TPS status, which would allow them to file the CADAA. One other thing to note is that California colleges are no longer required to verify that CADAA filers, specifically males between 18 and 25 years of age, have registered for selective service. For those of you who have been in financial aid for several years, may remember that this was a requirement for both FAFSA and CADAA filers, but that is no longer the case. While males between these ages are still required to register, it is not going to be required as proof of registration in order to receive financial aid, whether it's through the FAFSA or the CADAA. Now, for those non-immigrant visas and TPS. So I mentioned TPS earlier and listed a couple of the example countries where students may be coming from and have TPS status. So just so that we're all clear, students with TPS or hold a U visa should file the CADAA. On the other hand, the T visa, those holders should file the FAFSA, as under the federal regulations, students that hold T visas are eligible to file for federal aid in addition to state and campus aid. The countries with TPS status can change, so as I mentioned, you should go on to the USCIS website in order to see which countries are currently under that status. Now, below in red, we have all of the different types of possible visas that your students may be coming in with. But when it comes to filing for financial aid, it's very specific. TPS or U visas file the CADAA, and T visa holders file the FAFSA. Unfortunately, at this time, no other visas are eligible for financial aid, so you may need to work with those students to find alternative sources of uh, funds for higher education. Now, for 25-26, the CADAA application did have some changes. And these changes here are going to not greatly impact the students' experience when filing the CADAA. It's very similar to the 24-25 application. Really, we saw the CADAA get overhauled when FAFSA simplification was passed. So from 23-24 into 24-25 is when we saw the major changes. However, going into 25-26, as I said, the application has not changed drastically, but we do want to emphasize that there are some changes. One fairly recent change that you may not be aware of was the passing of Senate Bill 1141, which removed the 2-year cap at California community colleges in order for students to fulfill AB 540. So, when students are trying to meet that 3-year physical attendance in California schools requirement, it's no longer capping community college at 2 years. So, that's great news for our CADAA filers. We also reworded the grade level question just to make it more clear. And so we specified that when the student starts the 25-26 academic year, we ask, what will be your grade level in college? We also, as of 24-25, enabled parents to electronically sign during the initial application submission. So again, for those of you who have been in financial aid for many years, you may recall that when the student filed the CADAA, they would have to actually sign and submit it before the parent could come in and sign it, which would generate a second transaction. That is no longer the case. Both the parent and the student can file during the very first transaction. We've also removed the parent PIN process. It's far easier now. It's just a click, a checkbox where the student and parent will electronically sign. Now, if the parent is not present at the time of initial submission, it's very easy for the parent to get in and sign it later. They can actually get directly to it from the CADAA landing page. The CADAA landing page you can get to by clicking the link below. Essentially, it's dream.csac.ca.gov, and there'll be a few options there. It'll ask the student if they are logging into their own application or if the parent is trying to sign their student's existing application. So very easy and user-friendly. Some other questions that we added to the CADAA as of 24-25. We are now asking if the student would like to opt into text message alerts from CSAC. They are general alerts. They are not going to be specific to the student's own application. Typically, they are regarding things like upcoming deadlines and other important announcements that they may want to know as a CADAA filer. We also are asking if the student is interested in DSIG. By answering yes, the DSIG flag will appear on the CalISER, and the student will be included in targeted outreach by CSAC. You can also use this for your own campus communications if you are trying to get the word out about DSIG. So we've actually added this question on the CADAA as of 24-25, so you can easily identify students who are interested in DSIG. We also have questions, though, that we've added the prefer not to answer option to certain questions regarding gender, race, ethnicity, and the student's primary language at home. Although these questions are mandatory, the student can answer prefer not to answer. So it is not required that they select a particular item as long as they've answered the question. And then correcting the application. So there may be times when the student needs to correct their CADAA, specifically when the student maybe filed the FAFSA in error and meant to file the CADAA. There's other times when maybe the student filed the CADAA but meant to file the FAFSA, or if the student has gained permanent residency or citizenship mid-year. And so corrections to the application, there's two different kinds of corrections. So the first is when a student goes in to fix, typical items on the CADAA, which are going to be, things like income, assets, family size, the typical corrections that we see perhaps when we are performing verification. But when I'm talking about these corrections here, these require action done by the commission. So again, when students have completed duplicate applications or they're swapping from CADAA to FAFSA or the other way around, this may require a G55 form, which is an application conversion form. I do want to specify, though, that this form is not required for students that file the CADAA for mixed status families. Those students, once they file the FAFSA, their application is automatically converted because the idea with CADAA for MSF was for that the student would file the CADAA for MSF now and complete the FAFSA later. But for students not filing CADAA MSF and instead are filing the traditional CADAA, they need to let CSAC know in the case that they either filed the wrong application or filed duplicate applications or again gained permanent residency or citizenship mid-year. They can then work with their school to complete the G55 form and include any kind of required documentation. Once that is filled out, that can be submitted to the commission and we can make updates on our end. Now let's take a look at the CAL-ICER and other related CADAA reports. So Cal Dream Act ICERs, these are typically available in normal years. They'll become available shortly after students begin filing the CADAA. Of course, 24-25 was a very unusual year where lots of changes were made to the ICER layout file, which again, we had to mimic the federal ICER file because they work kind of interchangeably. We try to mimic it as closely as possible. And so for schools wanting to review their Cal Dream Act ICERs or download them, they can actually get them directly within Web Grants. This is Web Grants for institutions, so you will need access from your system administrator in order to get to this page and download Cal ICERs. Under the Cal Grant section, there is a link that says Data Transfer. You can click Report Download to download your Cal Dream Act ICER file. These can be imported directly into your financial aid management system in whatever way you've programmed it to do. So you can import that raw data directly into your system and use it how you need to in order to get your students awarded and dispersed. Now, there's also a way to search for Cal Dream Act ICERs within Web Grants, and this is when you need to search for a particular student, perhaps to review the status of their application, to make corrections, or to access their CalSAR. You can search for students in a number of different ways. You can search for them by name, by their Dream Act ID number. You'll also want to keep an eye out for records here that either have no Dream Act ID, no SAI, or they have a blank information here on the record. So if you draw your attention to the record at the very bottom for Marcela Rodriguez, she does not have an SAI and does not have an app received date. So that means there's likely an error with her application. Perhaps it's missing a signature. So that would be a clue for you to know that it's not quite ready for processing, that there's something missing. Perhaps it's in reject status. There could be a number of reasons. This screen is available also within Web Grants. So for those of you completing verification or doing professional judgments, you would do all of that beginning here. Now, when you open a CADAA in order to correct it, I mentioned that this is the place where you might do a dependency override. So when you scroll down to the very bottom of the application, there will be an option here that's available for system administrators. There's a drop-down menu that will allow you to select that you, as the financial administrator, wants to override the student status from dependent to independent. If you are completing professional judgment for, say, a loss of income appeal, this is very important. You would first make your corrections to the CADAA and click the professional judgment box. Once you've submitted that correction, you'll also want to submit a grant record change, or G21. By doing this, it allows CSAC to reprocess and reevaluate the student for Cal Grant based on the new ICER transaction. So that is a very important step when doing professional judgment. Also, if you are completing verification, there is a box here that allows you to check mark that verification was complete when you go to correct and submit for a new ICER transaction. And so just a quick note about the CADAA itself. This is the parent signature page. This is going to include, as I mentioned, a checkbox for the parent to sign the application. They can sign it during the initial CADAA submission, or they can come back in after the fact and sign it directly from the CADAA landing page. So that makes it very simple and easy. And just so you're aware, applications can take a full 24 hours to process or more in some cases. Now, the CADAA confirmation page. So this is the confirmation page that students will see once they have submitted the CADAA. It will list any action that's needed by the student. It'll list the comment codes. So if there are any comment codes in red, it'll indicate that there is some perhaps issue or there is a question about the application that the student needs to take action on. There's also a section that's called No Resolution Needed, which simply says that, we've received your CADAA, it's being currently processed. Contact your financial aid office for, questions or anything that is needed further. And then there is a third section called Next Steps. Here is where we remind the student that although they filled out the AB 540 affidavit within the CADAA, it is the college's responsibility to verify AB 540 eligibility. And so we are just letting students know that they should check with their college's admissions office before the term starts in order to ensure that they're getting that in-state tuition and that they are eligible for state or campus aid. Now, the CADAA report. This is the equivalent to the FAFSA submission summary, and this can be accessed by the student or the school. This is going to be pulled up when the student logs into their CADAA. When they go to the Sign and Submit section, there is a tab at the top that says CalSAR, and that will allow them to download it directly from this page. They can print a copy of any transaction. It has a history of any of the applications that were submitted and processed, and it'll also indicate who signed which transaction. So if just the student signed and it's missing a parent signature, they can clearly see here that there was only a student signature. So this is helpful, especially for students just wanting to keep a record of their CADAA And then, of course, this is helpful for financial aid staff as they are assisting students who need help with their CADAA. And then we're going to wrap things up with resources. So first is our specific website within the CSAC website that talks about resources for the CADAA. A few things that you'll find there include our video trainings. There'll be the paper copies of the CADAA in both English and Spanish. We also have other resources that are helpful, including California DREAM Act FAQs. We have common issues. We also have the G19 form, which is in the case where a CADAA applicant maybe submitted a CADAA with the wrong name or wrong date of birth. They can submit that form in order to make those changes without having to redo the entire application. So this definitely comes in handy, especially the paper application. It's also available in Spanish, which means you can print that out and have that handy if you are, say, at a Cash for College and you're wanting to assist students and parents with the CADAA. The link to our resources page is down at the bottom of the screen. We want to give a shout out to our Dreamer Resource Centers. These are located at California colleges and universities across the state. And these are a really great place for Dreamers to get the services that they need on campus, whether it's course planning, career advice. They could get assistance with their financial aid applications or scholarships. Some Dreamer Resource Centers even have emergency funds for students who have extreme circumstances. And so if you'd like to find a list of different Dreamer Resource Centers located throughout California, you can click the link at the bottom of the screen or scan the QR code here. You'll find an interactive map where you can find a Dreamer Resource Center near you. And that is going to be it for today. I thank you all for attending this final session of Calgary Regional Training Day 1. We hope to see you all again tomorrow. Thank you and have a great day.